It's Friday, it's 9:25, and let's go back to 1984, and it's a film called Give My Regards to Broad Street. And it's a film that's quite a difficult one to describe in terms of genre. Now, perhaps I could say it's a musical. It's not the usual sort of musical at all. I suppose it's a musical, fits the specifications of a musical. Now, the story centres around Paul McCartney, who's played by Paul McCartney, being driven to somewhere in a car in the rain while he drifts off to sleep. And in his daydream, he's driving a car himself, not being chauffeur-driven. He's driving a car himself in his daydream. A completely different car, little, small, stylish, kind of hot-rodded, customised, and full of computerised business telecommunications gear. For 1984, that is. And Steve, who's a business associate of his, played by Australian actor Brian Brown, calls Paul in the car about Harry, who's another chap who works with them. Harry's gone missing, and so has the master tapes to the latest album that they've just finished, which Harry was supposed to be taking, here's Harry with the master tape, Harry was supposed to be taking to the mastering plant by train. Now what worries Steve is that Harry is an ex-con, but has gone straight by the time that Paul took him on. So Paul's convinced that no, Harry wouldn't do a thing like that. He's straight. He's not in that thing anymore. But the rest are not so sure. You see. So the police get involved, and so does another character, Mr. Rath, a powerful, legitimate businessman who somehow had loaned McCartney's production company, mostly managed by Steve, the one played by Brian Brown, during some lean times some years ago. Mr. Rath intends to cover his risk by taking over the company by midnight if the master tape doesn't show up. Paul and Linda McCartney and Ringo Starr have to go to the studio where they find George Martin there and many others to lay down a medley in one perfect take. You know, the way you do this kind of thing. And Paul is still a bit preoccupied with Harry, wondering what happened. Paul is sure that he didn't do anything malicious intentionally, such as steal the tape to have it bootlegged in return for money. Perhaps he was murdered. Who knows? I'll come back to that in a minute. Paul is, as I say, is still, preoccupied. Further songs get recorded and videos for the songs are shot. So it's a busy day in showbiz. Videos involve costumes and makeup, and while Paul still daydreams about Harry and what trouble he might have got himself into, the daydreams start merging with the song videos, and they elaborate further each time. The film consists of whole McCartney/Wings songs, and indeed Beatles songs, interspersed with episodes of action to glue the story together, kind of successfully in that respect. A good session of music playing in the middle of the film involves who I consider to be the coolest person in rock music, and this is Chris Spedding. Now, he's playing guitar and basically being cool as usual in the film. Chris Spedding himself tried to have a solo career, but was too much in demand as a session player instead. He did the production and arrangement for the Sex Pistols' first demos. There's a rumour that he actually played the guitar on the Sex Pistols' first albums, but that's been denied. He played with Mike Batt's band, the Wombles. He was the one with the Flying V guitar, because that's his sort of trademark guitar. He played with Brian Ferry during the 70s, and also recently, he's still, working with Brian Ferry on tour recently. And he also, on a personal note, when I learnt guitar in Papua New Guinea in the 70s, the first music book I ever bought was by Chris Spedding, but it was a country music guitar book. Anyway, by the end of the film, things are looking grim. The tape and Harry are still missing. The business looks set to be taken over. Paul is driving around at night and has a flash of inspiration as he remembers Harry saying that he's off to Broad Street Station, bye. And this prompts a quick chorus of an impromptu modification of an existing show tune, turning it into Give My Regards to Broad Street, which is where the title of the film comes from. Now, Paul drives over to an empty Broad Street station at night, and he finds his way onto the deserted platform, then sits and ponders for a bit. He looks over to the next seat. It's dark at night. It's nearly midnight. And there in the rain is the master tape canister with the tape inside. He then finds Harry locked in a deserted shed on the station, on the platform. And, Harry thought it was a toilet earlier in the day. He got locked in and fell asleep. Paul and Harry drive back happy. Paul makes a call in his car to Linda, who calls the boardroom to tell Steve that the tape and Harry are safe. So the takeover doesn't go ahead with minutes to go. Paul's original car, remember, he's being chauffeur-driven. Paul's original car arrives at his destination in the rain. Steve opens the door and Paul wakes up. So it was all a dream. Broad Street Station itself no longer exists. It closed in 1986, only a couple of years after this film. Bit of a kiss of death. It was immediately next to Liverpool Street Station and was seeing decreasing use over the years, and in the end it closed. All the trains diverted into Liverpool Street, with the exception of a couple of stations on the line, which would become part of the London Overground. And the station was demolished completely, and it's on the spot is now Broadgate, which is an office complex with shops. Crossrail's Liverpool Street stop will have a station entrance in the position that used to be Broad Street Station's old underground entrance, and the Crossrail platforms themselves are underneath the Broadgate complex, so kind of harking back to the original Broad Street Station. The film did very badly at release, although the album of the same name, all the songs which are in more or less the same order, did very well, and it was very well received. The film not only produced a successful album, but also a computer game, C64 and Spectrum, by Argus Press. And I think the film is essentially a kind of portfolio of work to date for Paul McCartney, like perhaps a kind of CV. As a real film, it's fairly messy and not quite in an acceptable format, and it's easy to criticise, and it's easy to say it's not a good film. But I think, now, give it a chance. I think you'll find value in it. It's not terrible. I think it stands up a lot better now. A lot of people are owning up to liking it now, and I think that's valid. I like this film, and that's not through any kind of fan inclination, as I'm not and have never been a Beatles fan. However, I do quite like Paul McCartney for his leanings towards experimental music and music concrete when he gets the chance. For example, having the sound of a BOAC jet engine running all the way through back in the USSR, that's the kind of thing that he likes to do. I like that kind of thing too. Give my regards to Broad Street, 1984. Have a very good weekend, have a very good Friday, and goodbye. Thank you very much.